This is Doug Farrar, NFL writer with Sports Press Northwest, here again with our good friend Rob Rang, Senior Draft Analyst with NFLDraftScout.com. And we want to do a quick two-point conversation about the need for a ready right tackle, with Sean Locklear's performance over the last couple of years being a bit middling, and we don't really know what Stacey Andrews might do moving outside from right guard, which he seemed kind of ill-suited for, to the right tackle position. And I wanted to put forth a proposition that what the Seahawks need to do at 25, more than anything else, is get a guy who can slide into the right tackle position game one, whenever that may be, and perform at the level they need to really put their running game forward with Tom Cable, with Marshawn Lynch, Justin Forsett. And to me, that means drafting a guy who may have a lower ceiling, but is more ready now. And the player who's impressed me the most in that regard, considering that Anthony Costanzo of Boston College will probably be gone at 25, is Derek Sherrod of Mississippi State. Really impressed me during the Senior Bowl week with his ability to not only play left tackle, but to slide over to right tackle seamlessly. And as much as people think, oh, that must be an easy transition, it really isn't, because you saw other guys like Gabe Karimi really struggle with it. So I think if they can get a Sherrod or someone like that who's more pro-ready now, to put him on the right side, and someone who can also play left tackle because Russell Okung has had ankle issues, someone who can bounce over there, I really think it behooves the Seahawks to look for a guy at that position, at the right tackle position, who's pro-ready now, to put their offense forward and make them a playoff team with a winning record this time. Rob, what are your thoughts about the pro-readiness, low ceiling, versus the developmental prospect, high ceiling, at right tackle with the Seahawks right now?
I too am high on Derek Sherrod. I think that he is a very good football player. As you mentioned, he has played most of his experiences on the left tackle position. At the same time, the Seahawks aren't, I don't think I'm breaking any news here, they're not competing for the Super Bowl next year. And so I don't know that you necessarily have to find a player that is going to come in and be an immediate impact star at right tackle, that you are afforded a little bit of time for development. Certainly if they're going to be potentially drafting a first-round quarterback, second-round quarterback, any type of young quarterback, then this is a team that is going to need some time to gel. And so therefore you may want to look at the long-term upside of a player. Again, I'm high on Derek Sherrod. I would have no problem if they took Derek Sherrod number 25 overall. But a player that intrigues me is Nate Solder from Colorado. He is a former tight end, 6'7", 315 pounds, is a spectacular athlete for the offensive tackle position, a player that I've compared at times in the past to Joe Staley from Central Michigan, who the 49ers under Scott McCloughan drafted and saw him develop as a left and right tackle for the 49ers. I think that he could be successful in that role, and so he certainly makes some sense to me. I would also mention Gabe Karimi, a player that you mentioned before, the Outland Trophy winner, as a dominant run blocker, and so that was one of the reasons that I really think that he could make some sense at that right tackle position. Certainly an area of concern for the Seahawks. I do think that they need to shore up the pass blocking from that position, but more than anything else, they really need a tough guy that can be an effective run blocker, something that Pete Carroll and Tom Cable, of course, as well, very much prioritize.
Yeah, as far as sort of Solder goes, my main concern is the fact that he's raw like sushi. I mean, he to me is about 2 years away from being a legitimate tackle prospect on either side. He gives up far too many pressures on the back side of his arc. He's not fully formed. I mean, yeah, he's a great athlete, but I really question. I mean, the guy I would compare Solder to is Robert Gallery, who was obviously a lot better coached, but when he came in, really struggled at that tackle position. And if you haven't seen a guy do that, and Gallery did it in college, my question to you would be, if you haven't seen a guy perform at that level, how do you know? What are the characteristics that will inform you to go forward and say, yeah, this guy's worth X number of millions of dollars and X number of draft stock we're going to put into him? Because if I'm the Seahawks and I've got that many problems, they still need two guards as well. If I got that many problems, do I take a risk prospect with a higher upside at that position?
Well, I think that's a fair debate. That's with Solder in particular. There certainly were plays throughout his career where he struggled. My biggest concern is the fact that when you're playing against NFL competition, there's essentially two types of pass rushers. There's speed rushers and there's power rushers, and I saw him get beat by both. And that's my biggest concern, is that the elite speed he was able to, he's so long that elite speed is able to get past him, and then he is not able to quite reach them because he's as tall as he is. They're able to dip and rip around him, and so that's a concern that I think can be lessened by putting him on the right tackle position. Power is again also a concern because he is as big and tall as he is, that he sometimes struggles with leverage, and that's one of my concerns. Getting back to Derek Sherrod, is a concern about leverage with him as well. He has very wide shoulders. He's very narrow-hipped for an offensive tackle, and so what that usually means, it's kind of an inverted triangle that makes him susceptible to power rushers getting into his chest, making him be able to be susceptible again to the bull rush. And so those are the types of concerns I have. I rate them as very similar players. I agree that Derek Sherrod is a little bit maybe more pro-ready at this point. I do, however, believe that Nate Solder has a higher upside, and therefore both should be considerations for the Seahawks at 25.
It's a compelling debate. High upside, high pro readiness, and something we're certain is going on in the Seahawks war room as we speak. This is Doug Farrar with Sports Press Northwest, Rob Rang from NFLDraftScout.com.